morning, everybody. Welcome to the Moms Making Money Show. We have a slightly different format today. We were experiencing a couple of technical difficulties this morning, and so we improvised. And that's one of the awesome things about being a work-at-home mom and working in the virtual space. Today I have a really special treat for you guys. So if you're hopping on live, please be sure that I'm going to pop open a different screen here since we are working in technical difficulty mode, so I can see your comments. If you're popping on live, feel free to say hi, let us know where you're coming from, and if you're catching the replay, go ahead and type in replay so we know you were here. But I want to introduce my friend Jillian Thomas. She is a social media strategist. I like to call her a guru or an expert, but she's really a wealth of knowledge in all things, growing your business, social media, and I met her. When did we meet? In April. And I got to actually meet her in person for the first time of actually meeting her. So that was like a super bonus. And she is such a sweetheart. She has such a kind soul. And she knows so much stuff. She is so smart with all of this stuff, like Facebook ads and everything else. Like, she just knows her stuff. So I really like to call her a true expert because I feel she's very, very much so one.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. So everybody, welcome Jillian to the Moms Making Money Show. She is not yet a mom, so I know that I know there was a little bit of confusion about that on her end. So this is not an announcement of that sort yet. Maybe we'll do something special for Jillian when she decides that it's time to start having little babies and stuff. We'll do your announcement on the show.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
But Jillian, I'm going to turn it over to you. Why don't you take it away? Tell us really quick a few things about, how you got started. What made you decide to be a female entrepreneur? I'm going to check really quick and make sure that we are broadcasting
Cool.
and that people can see us while you're filling us in.
Yeah, so it's so funny because I actually started in a completely different space. So I spent a majority of my career in ophthalmology and in medicine. I studied chemistry and math in college and thought that I wanted to be a doctor. And I think I felt just a lot of pressure from family and things like that, and going down that traditional route of
right,
climbing the ladder and that sort of stuff. And then it was really interesting because how I kind of fell into this is that I had another idea for a business. And it was a subscription box company, which I still am really passionate about this idea. And I wanted ways to market it. So I began learning a lot about social media marketing, and really fell into the space. I think the first kind of course that I had taken was with Derek Halpern, and I was learning a lot about kind of this online entrepreneur space. And at that time, I was kind of I had a lot of followers that were musicians,
right,
in the musician space. And so when I was realizing that they weren't kind of using their social media effectively, they were really talking at their audience, completely being salesy on their page constantly, not really giving a lot of content.
right.
And I realized that this was kind of a big issue with why they might not be engaging their fans and their followers in a really meaningful way. And so I kind of flipped that and began kind of teaching some of the knowledge that I had picked up along the way about social media marketing. I studied a lot more, started taking a lot of Facebook ad courses. I think the first one I took was Facebook Unleashed or something like that. And then I took an Amie Porterfield course, and then was in a couple group programs and the Funnel Playground, and learned just a lot about Facebook ads, marketing, and building funnels in your business, and really just fell in love with it. And then I realized that I had this calling in kind of the political space, and really wanting to make an impact that way. And I just couldn't resist that calling. And so I was following a politician who I really wanted to work for. And, they happened to have just really crazy. I happened to redo my resume to make it more social media oriented. And then they happened to have an opening for a social media director. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get this. And I was talking to my boyfriend and I was like, I don't even know if I should apply. I don't think I'm going to get this. And he's like, you literally have nothing to lose.
Right.
And I was like, you know, you're right. You know, I literally have nothing to lose. And in the worst case, I've like put together this really awesome portfolio of different like graphics that I've designed and my social media and strategies and ads that I've run successful and all of that sort of stuff. And so I applied and ended up getting it. And it was like the best job I've ever had in the entire world. I was like, I woke up every day really just being excited about what I was doing. And I knew that I was like on the right path. And so I moved from that until working with a nonprofit and doing social media for them as well and growing their social media following. And that's kind of where we're up today.
That is so awesome. And the cool thing about it is like you can tell that that's like in your soul and like on your heart and it like truly lights you up. Like that is so awesome. We've got Miss Sarah Dan hopping on and she says hi.
Sarah.
She's our Sarah D.
Yes.
I'm convinced on making sure that she becomes Sarah D instead of Sarah Dan. So because I think she's epic in that way. So when you first got started, I mean, like having that position come available is obviously was the universe telling you something, even though sometimes it's not easy to recognize that right at first that, you know, oh my gosh, like this is a sign, I've got to take it. Once you got into that position and you kind of started to grow into like, you know, the politics and the nonprofits and all that kind of stuff, what kind of stuff came up for you about like, okay, so I'm going from being employed here, you know, like I had applied for this position into more of like a freelance or entrepreneur type of space? Like, was there anything that came up like, oh my goodness, like this is kind of intimidating?
Yeah, well, how I like really wanted to come into the space. Well, I just saw so many people building their businesses online, and I like it hit me that like you don't have to take this traditional path of, you know, working a 9 to 5, and oftentimes people are working like, you know, way past 40 hours a week.
Really I don't know anybody who starts at 9 a.m. by the way, except for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And you know, really not enjoying their job, really settling, and I just saw a lot of people just building their business online, and I was like, you know, I can do this too. I've really always enjoyed teaching, even in the ophthalmology space. I was someone who would like onboard a lot of our technical staff and stuff like that, and then teach them all the ropes, and I just really enjoy teaching. And then I had really actually thought, you know, maybe it was like an agency that I wanted to run or something like that, and like actually, you know, run people's social media and run their advertisements and that sort of stuff. So I began like taking on some of those clients, and I realized that I really did not like that. I feel stressed out with my own ads already, and then to like have the pressure of other people, it's not a place that I really enjoy right now. Right. But I do enjoy like empowering people to use an effective social media strategy to build their business and teaching people. And I think it's really important for people to have that understanding, even if they end up outsourcing it, which I do recommend, like once you are scaling and growing and up leveling and all that stuff, to outsource those tasks so that you can kind of focus on being creative and building your business.
Right.
I think it's important for people to understand that strategy so that they can obviously like build that in their funnels and all of that sort of stuff. So,
agreed.
Yeah, that's kind of how.
Good. And were there any things, like any part of you that you were like had like self-doubt or fear or like, oh my gosh, can I actually do this? Or maybe you had somebody like chirping in your ear, like saying like, oh no, like get it. You know, I often hear people tell me like, when I'm talking to people about being on the show, that they're told by their loved ones, like, get a real job. Like, and for me, that like makes me get so frustrated. But Did any of that kind of stuff come up for you when you were first starting, or like self-doubt, like, can I actually do this? Like,
oh, totally. Yeah. And I still have self-doubt like all the time. Yeah. So I really suffer from imposter syndrome. It's hard for me. Something that I'm realizing too, and especially working with Sarah as well and journaling about all of this stuff, is that like, sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit, but I realized that like sorry, I completely lost my train of thought.
We were talking about imposter syndrome and journaling.
Oh yes. And so I like don't celebrate my wins.
Yeah.
And I really have a hard time doing that. And I like a candidate that I worked for, that was for a presidential campaign, and so I like
that's huge.
Yeah, and I don't like acknowledge a lot of that stuff for myself. I completely transitioned from like being in medicine to social media marketing and working with these nonprofits and different candidates that are running for office. And so that's something that I'm really working on. And I think it's important for people to make sure that they are celebrating their wins, no matter how small they think they are or how big they are, and just really recognizing the growth that you've had. But yeah. Yes, definitely self-doubt. I do have that from time to time.
Yeah, and somebody might even tell you that you manifested that job with that presidential campaign. So, you know, if you could manifest that, why not anything else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, exactly.
Well, and it was I know that, you know, just from knowing you and speaking with you in person, I know that that was like such like an impactful, like shifting thing for you, like, because you got to be in that space and you got to learn a lot of different things and experience a lot of different things. And the candidate that you worked with, it was somebody that you supported. So being in, like, just in it and like totally in it, I think like was like immersion for you. Like, you know, like when you're going to learn another language, when you're immersed in that culture, it's so much easier to really find your way. And so I feel like that maybe was a little bit of something that, you know, you were able to be blessed to have a part of that. So I think it's super awesome. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. And it's so different, like being, doing social media in the political scene versus like doing things in the entrepreneur online space, because things are happening so quickly. You can't really, I mean, I do recommend for people to plan out their content to an extent, but you know, a lot of things are happening on a daily that you have to respond to. So there's a lot of different, like online organizing, which is what I call them, that you can do with social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, like, for me, I get intimidated by, you know, things like Facebook ads and other types of, you know, things that you're actually paying for. And I know part of that's like a money mindset thing, and part of it's just being comfortable with my knowledge base in that space. But now here I am losing my train of thought. Once you get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, then you start to get like the little shifts, like, okay, I got this, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of jumping in. And I have to remind myself that too, that I just need to like jump in with a lot of stuff. Because I think a lot of times, like, there's this perfectionist thing where you feel like things have to be perfect. You have to have that perfect launch. You have to have that perfect webinar. That I'm totally dealing with that right now with my webinar. It's mindset stuff that I have to work through and just do it. But yeah, it's like we get caught up in that and it ends up hindering us. And I love how Sarah says, you know, what about this is keeping you safe? And, you know, and you really think about that, like, you know, why are you not taking that action?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's super funny because I was recording a course last night for, my signature program, The Recipe for Success. And it's funny that we're talking about this because one of the things that I was talking about in that course, in that recording, was perfectionism. And I gave an example of it. And even like today, like a year ago, like I would have been totally bugged out about like, oh my gosh, it didn't go as planned. We had a technical difficulty. But today was like, yeah, no problem. We're going to go do something different. It's going to look a little different, but who cares? We're still going to get to speak with you and have an amazing interview. And it's going to be awesome. Like, and that's something that, you know, you have to work with coaches on. You know, I the first person to ever tell me like, hey, it's okay that you had a technical difficulty. It's okay that there was a glitch. You still you didn't just throw up your hands and say, oh, the show is over, I'm canceling. The show went on and here we are. And so I remember talking with Sarah about that, and she's like, yeah, it gets to be awesome. You did it. And here we are. So just being resourceful, to a certain extent, and knowing a workaround and, a backup plan for a technical difficulty, that's huge too. Mindset stuff. I've got this new thing that I've been telling all the girlies, in the Goal Getter Girls, is for me, I feel like mindset is the nutrition, where it's 80%, because there's different things that break down into that nutrition portion of it, whether it's portion control, getting enough water, eating enough vegetables, that's the 80%. And then over here is your fitness stuff, that's the 20%. So maybe that's your tech stuff, your marketing, your Facebook ads, whatever. And you can get results doing just this, and you can get results doing just this, but when you combine them together, that's when the magic happens. And same with when you combine good nutrition and all the stuff that goes in there, and you combine good fitness, you get the maximum results. So that's kind of how I break it down in my business. Obviously, coming from a health type of background, that makes sense for me. So that's what that's how I look at it, is mindset is my nutrition, and all the techie stuff is my workout.
Yeah,
and I feel about the same
really
about both of them as I do in real life.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome analogy. It's so interesting how many people don't do the mindset. I had been through this whole process, and mindset wasn't really talked about.
Right.
And I think a lot of times, and even just thinking about people with their Facebook ads and that sort of stuff, there's so much mindset stuff that goes on with why people are not running their Facebook ads.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel you have to deal with that in order to really be successful with Facebook ads as well.
Right.
And work through some of those things and that money mindset that you might have and all of that. So I think more of that. It's really interesting kind of just meeting you and being in this group that we're in and stuff. It's I'm just learning so much more about how it's important to focus on your mental space as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because I remember the first time that somebody was oh, you should read these personal development books. I was I don't need self-help. I'm not crazy. That's what I seriously thought. And I think that there's a common misconception of personal development. You know what I mean? I didn't know who Tony, when I first was introduced to it, I had no idea who Tony Robbins was. I had no idea who Gabby Bernstein was. I had no idea who all these, epic people were. I had no idea, one of my favorites is Jim Rohn. No idea who he was. And now it's kind of how did I not know about these guys? How did I not, bring these people into my life sooner? And it was because I had this thought in my head that I don't need self-help. I'm not some sort of a victim of whatever. I don't even know what I was thinking, that I was that people who needed self-help books were victims of. I was what do I need this book for? Or whatever. And then I finally gave in. And I think the first one I listened to was You Are a Badass. And I was oh, this is so different than what I thought was going to be self-help. It helped myself a lot. It really got my, the wheels turning in a completely different way. And the wheels were pretty rusty, at that point. Yeah. They were starting, the little cogs were starting to fuse together, I think. But so then, one book leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And, starting with You Are a Badass, I always say that book changed my life, because in a way, because it was the first book when I say I read books, I actually listen to them on audio. So it was the first book I listened to, because I used to have a long commute. So I'd spend 45 minutes each way listening to an audiobook, and I could bust out an audiobook in a couple of days. So that became my thing. I canceled my Sirius subscription, everything, because I'd never use it. I just listened to the books. And I can honestly look back, and you can probably too, look back to that point in time and what my life was how I viewed things and how I viewed people, how I viewed myself, how I viewed taking on a challenging situation. The way I would have handled all of that prior to doing this kind of mindset work. And back then I didn't call it mindset work. I just called it personal development. But really starting to do the self-reflection and getting honest with myself, That's, I think, the biggest thing is people are like, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what my holdup is. But then when then something will hit them and they'll be like, oh, it's this. And then it hits you like a ton of bricks. But I'm a completely different person, like the way that I react, the way that I approach things now than I was, say 3 or 4 years ago before I started all of this. So yeah, mindset, I'm glad that we got to this. Like, a mindset is a huge part of it, even when you're going to be tackling something that's, technical, like Facebook ads or any other social media ads.
Totally. And it's a practice. Like, it's not like you do it one time and then you're good to go.
No, it's like ongoing.
Yes, you have to constantly be working at it.
Yeah.
And like constantly reviewing it and all of that stuff, and making sure that you're checking yourself so that you're kind of staying in your high vibe space and stuff, and protecting your space.
I have, if you look right above my head, and I have it strategically placed there. Actually, I don't, but now I'm going to tell everybody I do. I have my crown from
that's awesome.
that I got after the mastermind. So it's like a subconscious high vibe thing going on.
That's awesome.
But yeah, like being in that space of high vibe and being able to, because like even for me, like, sometimes when I think about Facebook ads, I cringe. I'm like, oh, am I just going to light this money on fire? Like, like that was something that, and I know part of that's mindset, and I allow Facebook ads and stuff like that to sometimes intimidate me and get the best of me. But then it's like, when I'm in there and I'm like, oh, well, I can set up an audience. Oh, I know how to do this. Oh, I know how to do that. It's really not that hard. So it's like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot to it, it's complicated, and so it is still difficult for me, but it's not as hard as the pressure that I put on myself to do it is a lot worse from a mindset perspective than actually clicking the buttons.
Yeah, totally. No, I totally hear what you're saying on that.
Well, I want to introduce a little bit about what Jillian does and something that she's agreed to offer for us. So I put a link in, I believe it'll be above this video by the time this broadcasts. It's a little link to have her come do a Facebook audit for you. So you can take a look at that and, see if that's something that you want her to do. Like, she'll go in and analyze like what you're currently doing, what she can see the statistics are that's working, that's not working, what else kind of is included in this audit.
Yeah, so there's kind of like 6 key areas that I've mapped out, and there's tons of areas on the Facebook page that are important. There's ways that you can help to drive the traffic that's visiting your Facebook page over to whatever you're offering, your Facebook community, landing page, your website, whatever that is. And I see so many people running their Facebook ads without like having their Facebook page set up in a way that like will want to grab someone's attention. Yeah. So a lot of times when people are clicking their Facebook ads, yes, some people will go through, but there's a lot of people that are going to go and check you out and see what you're about and see if you're legit and all of that stuff. And so you want to make sure that every part of your Facebook page is helping to drive traffic over to that offer or over to, like I said, your Facebook community or something like that. So yes, so you have that link. So if people want to just read about it, I'm offering 3 free Facebook audits to people who might be interested. If you're seriously interested, you can just PM me, private message me, and we can get that scheduled. And you get a video recording. It's a video one-on-one with me, and I actually walk you through this whole entire process of kind of analyzing your page. You get that video recording, and you get email access to me after the recording as well.
So I've had this done, you guys, and it is an exceptional value. So, and obviously it's only for 3 people. So it's kind of first come, first serve. Whoever gets their spots first gets their spots. So make sure you guys hit up Jillian about that. And even if the spots are filled, I mean, just hire her to do that for you, because there might be something blaringly obvious that she can tell you that could, that you could just tweak or shift or adjust a little bit that could change the entire trajectory of your Facebook traffic.
Yeah, totally. And I think that people don't really sometimes have a strategy with their Facebook page. And this will help you kind of teach you how to build that strategy with your page and help to convert a lot more of your leads and build that relationship with your followers.
Right, exactly. And I mean, so yes, you can still make conversions doing the Facebook ads and different things, but you can also get your own conversions, and the people who are led to you from those Facebook ads will convert higher if you have certain little things implemented into your just your layout and what you're presenting and posting into your content.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, no, so super cool. All right, you guys. Well, we're going to wrap up here, but I am so excited that Jillian hopped on, and I just adore her. And this was a great call. Well, I guess it wasn't even a call. I call everything a call. But Jillian is also an amazing person. She's actually one of my favorite experts. I got all my favorite people to be experts in the Recipe for Success course as well. So we're going to dive a lot further into all of this in that course. So if that interests you also, be sure to send me a message, but definitely make sure that you get in on one of those free spots with Jillian, because that could just change. I mean, that could just be the changing point for you. It could, all those little tiny adjustments could just really make a bunch of big shifts for you right away.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Amie, and to your audience as well. I really appreciate being on here.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll be having Jillian back, because I suspect that by the next time we have a presidential campaign occurring, that she will be a big deal.
That is the plan.
Yay! All right, you guys, keep an eye on this one. All right, talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Bye.
Bye.